Have you ever locked eyes with someone and felt time fall away? Not a romantic stare, not infatuation, something deeper, something ancient, like your soul remembered them. You weren't looking for them. You didn't plan for this. It just happened. You meet their eyes and everything inside you pauses. You don't know their story. You don't know their name. But you know. You know this isn't the first time your paths have crossed. It's not love at first sight. It's recognition, familiarity beyond explanation, as if some forgotten part of you finally came home. They don't say anything. You don't say anything. But in that silence, everything speaks. A stillness, a warmth, a flood of emotion you can't name. No words, no touch, just presence. And yet, that presence shakes your entire being. You might try to reason through it. Tell yourself you're imagining things. You're not. This doesn't happen often, and when it does, it doesn't leave you the same. Because when two souls recognize each other, it's not a coincidence. It's a calling, a mirror held up to your soul. They see something in you, and somehow you see yourself more clearly in their eyes than you've ever seen in your own reflection. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. And it raises a question that won't go away. Why would the universe let you meet someone like this? Only to make them unreachable. You weren't ready. They weren't ready. Life wasn't ready. But the connection, it was. You met the right soul at the wrong time. And now you live with this ache. A knowing without a future. A love without a form. But what if that ache has a purpose? What if you didn't meet to be together, but to awaken something? Something buried, something vital, something your soul needed to remember. And what if that recognition, that flash of eternity in a single glance, was the beginning of your deepest transformation? If this has ever happened to you, stay with me. You're not alone. And this wasn't meaningless. You didn't choose to meet them. It wasn't something you could have planned or predicted. It happened like a ripple in time, quiet, precise, undeniable. Carl Jung called this kind of encounter synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence, events that seem unrelated by cause, yet connected by meaning. In Jungian psychology, synchronicity isn't about chance. It's not luck. It's the moment when your inner world aligns with the outer world perfectly, eerily, undeniably. You're drawn to them, not by logic, but by resonance. Something about them matches something unspoken inside you. Not what you want, not what you expected, but what your soul recognizes. That's why it feels like fate. Like something sacred just passed between you. And it's also why it feels so deeply unfair when the timing doesn't work. But what if the meeting itself was the point? What if the moment was meant to shift something inside you, not outside? To understand that, we need to look deeper into another of Jung's most powerful ideas, Anima and Animus. He believed that inside every man lives a hidden feminine presents the Anima, and inside every woman, a hidden masculine presents the Animus. These aren't gender roles, they're inner figures, archetypes. They live in the unconscious, and they shape what we're drawn to, who we fall for, who we fear, who we long for, with no rational reason. When you meet someone who resembles your inner archetype, something powerful happens. You project. You don't see them clearly. Not at first. You see the missing part of yourself. The part you've suppressed, forgotten, longed for. That's why the connection feels so intense. They don't just attract you, they activate you. They awaken something you didn't even know was sleeping inside you. Maybe it's the part of you that needed to feel seen. Maybe it's the part of you that craved safety, or wildness, or mystery. Maybe they spoke one sentence, and it felt like they wrote your diary. That's not magic. That's projection. But here's the secret. Jung revealed projection isn't a mistake. It's a message. It shows you what you're missing, and that's where individuation begins. Individuation is the process of becoming whole. It's not about finding your other half. It's about recognizing that the part you admired in them lives inside you too. You're not supposed to stay in projection forever. You're supposed to reclaim it. Bring it home. They might be gone. But the mirror they held up? Still here. Still asking, what did you see in them that you didn't know how to see in yourself? What did they awaken in you that was waiting for breath? This is the silent purpose of that impossible love. Not possession, not permanence, but transformation. Jung believed certain people come into our lives to shake us, to reflect us, to initiate the next stage of our becoming. Even if they can't stay, even if they never belong to us, they still serve the highest purpose. Because when you looked into their eyes, you saw your own soul looking back. And now, you don't get to unsee it. You carry it forward into who you become next. Why can't you hate the person who walked away? Why does the thought of them still soften you when it should harden you? You've tried to be angry, to be cold, to cut them out of your heart, but it doesn't hold. The anger never lasts. The silence never stays clean. Because deep down, the wound isn't just about what they did, it's about what they awakened. They touched something raw in you, something unfinished, and that's what makes it so hard to let go. You hear their voice maybe in a dream, maybe by accident, and your chest tightens. Not because you want them back, not even because they deserve it, but because the sound reaches a part of you no one else can. And that part still hopes, not for reunion, not always, but for resolution, for meaning, for something to make sense of the ache they left behind. But some connections aren't meant to be resolved. Some are meant to break you open, quietly, permanently. You go about your day, you smile, you move on, but then a song plays, or someone laughs like they did, and just like that you're back in it. For a second, for a breath. Why? Because you didn't just lose them. You lost the version of you that existed in their presence. You lost the mirror, the reflection of who you were when you were with them, the way they saw you, the way you saw yourself. And now, nothing quite fits the same. You wonder if you imagined it, if you made it all up, if the connection was only one-sided. But if that were true, why does it still live in your body? Why does your nervous system still remember what your mind is trying so hard to forget? It's not obsession, it's residue. They didn't just walk away from you. They left their imprint on the parts of you that were most alive when you were with them. You try to reason with it, to force logic onto longing. But the heart doesn't speak logic. It speaks memory, energy, absence. And the truth is, some people stay with you long after they've gone. Not because they belong there, but because their presence carved a space no one else has filled. You're not weak for still feeling it. You're human. And maybe, just maybe, you're supposed to feel it. Because the ache they left behind is the very thing calling you back to yourself. Not to the past. To what still lives inside you, waiting to be claimed, waiting to be healed. They didn't come into your life to love you in the way you hoped. They came to activate something buried, to awaken a wound that you thought had been healed, or worse, one you never even knew was there. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Let that sink in, because what if the person you can't forget isn't your destiny, but your mirror? What if the intensity you felt was never about them, but about the parts of you they reflected? Shadow work begins here, not in the light, but in the discomfort, the unease, the obsession, the ache, because all of that isn't just about them walking away. It's about what they stirred inside you before they did. They touched a part of you that was still tender, a part of you that had been waiting to be seen, even if it wasn't ready. And maybe that's why it hurt so deeply. Because they didn't just leave. They left right after showing you a part of yourself you had forgotten. That's the nature of reflection. They weren't the wound, but they illuminated it. They triggered the memory of abandonment, of not being chosen, of having to earn love, or lose it. And that trigger? That's the beginning of shadow work. Because your reaction isn't random, it's patterned. You may say, But I've done the work. I've healed. Maybe. But your soul knows what still lingers in silence, what still clings beneath the surface. And sometimes, the only way those parts can rise is through heartbreak. That's why you felt powerless around them. Why their presence seemed to control your thoughts. It wasn't control. It was contraction, a tightening around old pain, a reminder of something unfinished. This is where soul contracts come in. Not mystical, not magical, but deeply archetypal. Jung believed some encounters are orchestrated not by chance, but by the psyche's need to evolve. You meet someone, you fall fast, you fall deep, and just as quickly it falls apart. Why? Because the purpose was never the relationship. The purpose was revelation. They mirrored your fear of being unseen, your craving to be chosen, your patterns of overgiving, or withdrawing, or staying silent to be loved. They didn't cause those patterns. They just made them impossible to ignore. You can blame them, you can grieve them. But if you stop there, you miss the point. Because the real work is inward. Ask yourself, what did I feel that scared me? What part of me wanted to shrink in their presence? What story did I tell myself when they left? That I wasn't enough? That I was too much? Those answers matter, because that's the shadow, and it lives inside you, not them. But here's the power. Once you name it, it loses its grip. Once you face it, it can no longer run your life from the dark. They didn't stay, but the lessons did. And if you're willing to hold the mirror steady even when it shows you what you'd rather not see, you'll find that this pain had a purpose. Not to destroy you, to awaken you, to show you where you still abandon yourself, to help you choose differently. Next time. With someone else, or maybe first with yourself. It doesn't hit all at once. At first, it's just silence. They're gone. And everything feels quieter than it should. Not peaceful, empty. You keep waiting for the noise to return the excitement, the connection, the rhythm you had before. But it doesn't. Instead, you wake up, and everything feels still, too still. This is the void, that strange, hollow space between what was and what isn't anymore. A space where time stretches, where memories echo louder than reality, where meaning seems to vanish into thin air. You're not crying every day. You're not dramatic. You're just not here. People ask if you're okay. You nod. You function. You move. But inside, something has gone missing. And you don't know how to find it. This is the part no one talks about. Not the heartbreak, but what comes after it. The numbness, the detachment, the quiet ache that follows you like a shadow. You think you're broken or stuck. You wonder why you can't feel joy. Why the things that used to excite you now feel flat. But what if this isn't a breakdown? What if it's the beginning of awakening? Jung understood this space. He knew that when your outer world collapses, your inner world starts to whisper. But the whisper doesn't come in fireworks. It comes in silence. It comes in the ache you can't shake, in the questions you can't answer, in the dreams that don't make sense. Because when everything familiar falls away, you are left with the one thing you've been running from, yourself. And, for the first time, there's nothing to distract you from it. No one else to chase. No story to rewrite. Just you. And the pieces of you that were buried beneath what you thought was love. This is the sacred pause. The place where your soul finally has room to speak. And yes, it speaks through pain, through longing, through the unraveling, because the old version of you cannot come with you into what's next. The self that chased, that settled, that doubted is being stripped away, not as punishment, as preparation. There is something inside you that needed to be broken open. And it could only happen this way, through loss, through absence, through stillness. You didn't fail. You were called. And the call doesn't sound like inspiration. It sounds like emptiness. But stay in it. Don't run. Because something is forming in that quiet. Something ancient. Something true. The soul doesn't rise in noise. It rises in surrender. It begins to speak when your plans stop working. when your heart has nothing left to hold, when your identity begins to slip from your grasp. It says, now that you've lost what you thought you needed, who are you? Now that no one else is defining your worth, what will you discover? Now that you're not trying to be seen, what part of you is ready to be known? The pain didn't come to destroy you. It came to open you. So listen, there is a voice in the void, and it's yours. They weren't meant to stay. They came like a spark in the dark, sudden, bright, unforgettable. And just as quickly, they were gone. Not because the love wasn't real, but because their purpose was never to remain. They came to wake you, to crack something open in you, to pull you closer to the version of yourself you had been quietly avoiding. We often think soulmates are the ones who stay. But sometimes, the truest soul connection is the one that arrives, turns your world inside out, and leaves. Not to hurt you, to reveal you. They weren't a mistake. They were a mirror, a lesson, a catalyst. They showed you how deeply you could feel, how much you still longed to be seen, how far you had drifted from your own soul. And in the space they left behind, they gave you something even more important than love. They gave you yourself. So Nothis wasn't a failure. It was an awakening. You met the right person at the wrong time. But the time was right for your transformation. And if you're still holding on to the memory, if you still think of them, when the night grows quiet, let yourself feel it. You don't have to pretend you've moved on. You don't have to judge your heart for remembering. You're human. And sometimes, remembering is part of the healing. So if you've ever met someone like this, someone you loved but couldn't keep, leave a comment that simply says, I met them. I read everyone. And know this, you're not alone. If you want to go deeper into these soul connections, into the mysteries of timing, karmic lessons, and spiritual contracts, subscribe. The next video is for you. And until then, be gentle with yourself. Some stories aren't meant to last, but they still change everything.